So the custom mechanical keyboard scene is a really interesting one, because on the one side you've got this amazing community of kind of hobbyist creators that have designed amazing keyboard layouts and got the PCBs built, and you can buy these, but you have to kind of make them yourself. And then on the other side, you've got the polished options. You know, a good example of those is the ZSA ones, the Moonlander and the Planck. But of course, you can see what's going on. You know, it would be very difficult for a company like ZSA to compete with the range of different layouts on offer that the sort of hobbyist communities managed to create. So there's quite a big barrier to getting one of those kinds of keyboards, which is a shame because there are so many fascinating layouts that have been created on that sort of do-it-yourself side of the market. So a guy called Andrew approached me on the channel, and he set up a website called 3dkeeb.com, which sets out to kind of bridge that gap between the DIY boards and the off-the-shelf ones. And I think he's doing an amazing job, and I'm very excited to talk about what he sent me here. So obviously, if you've seen my other videos on the channel, you know I've kind of gravitated towards the idea of a 36 key layout because I think that's what makes the most sense, at least to me, in terms of minimizing the potential for finger movement. You know, you've got all your keys are literally just one distance away from your home row, and we've even eradicated the outer column, so your little fingers haven't got any lateral movement at all. So I think that's a really nice layout, and I'm you know, definitely kind of set on that. So the idea of a 36 key keyboard that is designed as a 36 key keyboard is super appealing. Now, I didn't realize this, but there's a keyboard called the Corne that actually can optionally have its outer columns removed to create a 36 key keyboard. So I was very, very excited when Andrew told me this and said I could jump in and get one of these to test out. Now, Andrew sent this to me for free, but I got a really good idea of the service he offers. It was definitely the full end-to-end experience, and I'm really excited and very happy to recommend him. So what 3dkeeb are setting out to do is to make it really easy to specify the keyboard the way you want it. They take care of the full build, and they'll 3D print a case for that keyboard too. So what you get through the post is a plug and play keyboard. Obviously, you've got to deal with the QMK firmware, but that's actually not too bad. It was much easier to get into that than I thought it was going to be. And again, Andrew from 3dkeeb really supported me through that process as well. So he's really doing an amazing thing here in terms of bridging that gap and providing support to something that's normally just a do-it-yourself kind of situation. So it's really as close to an off-the-shelf experience as you could hope for one of these custom, normally DIY keyboards. So obviously, when there are so many options that go into kind of specifying one of these keyboards, it's important that the support is there. And the email dialogue I had with Andrew as we were kind of deciding on the spec for this keyboard was fantastic. You know, he totally understands what's involved and the subtlety of the choices that you make when you're specifying one of these boards, and he'll walk you through that process. And I think that's essentially part of the service they provide, which is fantastic. So, for example, he explained which keycap sets had the profile set for QWERTY and obviously wouldn't be able to move around. So we actually settled on blank keycaps for this keyboard. So we have got the profile, the sculpted profile, but they're all blank, which is actually perfect for me. You know, I really like that. It doesn't matter what layout I use, I haven't got to move the keycaps around. And the profile makes a big difference, actually, compared to the flat profile that I'm used to with my ortholinear boards so far. So for a new business, they really nailed the shipping. It was sent to me via UPS. It was like less than a week to get here, I think, to the UK. So that was really cool to see. So the keyboard was supplied completely ready to go out of the box, even with magnetic USB cables, which is a really nice touch. So the case is 3D printed. Now I also went for the one without the screens because I thought, yeah, I don't really need them. I just want a nice clean look. And Andrew accommodated that with the 3D printed case with the blanking plates as well. So that was really cool. The Corne, if you haven't seen it, normally comes with little OLED screens, which are kind of quite cool, but actually I can't really see the need for them. So I went for a more clean look overall. So the hardware, definitely, you know, they really nailed that. It's you know, it's fantastic, plug and play, ready to go. But of course, I'm still left with the QMK firmware side of things because I need my layout on the keyboard. So I've got to get my head around how that works. And again, Andrew was there to support me through that process, pointed me in the right directions, gave me some sample code as well. And definitely, actually, it was a far less intimidating barrier than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to have to sort of, you know, fit in a couple of late nights figuring this out, but it wasn't that bad at all. It's definitely doable. I'll probably do some videos on that later on this channel as well. So there was one slight sort of scare through the process of setting this up when I put the layout that I use on the Moonlander, which is very heavily reliant on tap dance functionality. There were actually 63 keys that I'd set up tap dance, and it was all just, you know, firing the command version of the key on the hold. It turns out the tap dance functionality uses a lot of space in the firmware, so it didn't actually fit on the board. Basically, when we tried to flash it, it got an error. So I shrank my layout down to try and fit it on there, and Andrew was really helpful, trying, giving me tips on how to do that. Obviously, we can turn off some of the lighting animations to achieve that as well. And I disabled a couple of these tap dance features and eventually managed to get it to fit onto the board. But it's quite interesting, obviously, those kinds of things with keyboards like the Moonlander. You just haven't got to worry about that stuff. But at this level, those things kind of do creep in. You have to think about the size of the firmware a little bit. So obviously the number of options that you get when you specify one of these boards is huge. You can choose the different color of the case, you can choose what switches you have, what keycaps, what LED lighting arrangements you have. So this one's got the full works. It's got the underglow lighting and the RGB per key lighting too. And of course you can configure all of that in QMK, and it's not that hard either. I've had great fun setting up the color backlights here for the keys on the different layers, and I've left one layer with the animated effect as well. So it's all great fun, and definitely nice to see. And the 3D printed case has a translucent sort of edge to it, so you get the underglow really creates some really nice effects there through that side translucent edge. And even though the keycaps I'm using haven't got any double shot backlit clear markings on them, you can still see the glow from each key light underneath it. So it's nice. And it is kind of similar to the Moonlander and the Planck in that the keys sit on top of the case and there's no lip around the outer edge of it. So I'm really absolutely fascinated by what Andrews is setting out to achieve. He's really passionate about what he's doing and really believes in the importance of making these kinds of interesting keyboards much more accessible and approachable, because obviously anyone who's using computers can really benefit from these more specific ergonomic layouts, but they might not necessarily be an enthusiast with a soldering iron. So it's fantastic to see that these options are becoming much more accessible here.